Okay, this lesson is on the French seam. A French seam is a concealed seam allowance that works well with lightweight fabrics such as rayon, chiffon. Sometimes you can do it with lightweight knits, and it really gives a really beautiful finish on the inside. With French seams, instead of right sides together, wrong sides are together. So we start with the wrong sides together, and we're going to stitch a 3/8 inch seam allowance. Okay, so I'm going to do a 3/8 inch seam allowance for this French seam. I just happen to like to take the pins out, especially when they're a little bulky. It just eliminates any problems of maybe your needle rolling over it and breaking your sewing needle. So that's why I like to remove the pins. And I'm keeping my edges together. 3/8 inch seam allowance. I'm just moving the pins aside for now so I could next step. Remember that you are in control of the foot pedal. So if you need to stop and adjust your fabric, you do it. And I'm back stitching, making sure I'm sealing those ends. Bringing my needle in the highest position, picking my presser foot up. Okay, so that's my 3/8 inch seam allowance. So now I'm placing my garment on a seam roll so that the rest of the garment doesn't get pressed accidentally. And I'm going to iron my seam allowance open with some steam. Okay, you always want to make sure that your seam allowance is pressed open because that gives the seam a nice crisp look, and it's also very professional. And now I'm going to iron the seam allowance to the back or to one side. now that everything is pressed, I'm going to take my seam allowance and I'm going to trim this 3/8 inch seam allowance off to 1/8 of an inch. Okay, so here is pretty much close to 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Okay, and so now we're back at the machine and I am stitching a 1/4 inch seam allowance for this French seam. And it's about 3/16. Again, I'm going to back stitch. My needle up in the highest position. My presser foot up. I always forget what side the presser foot is on this machine. And my French seam is finished. Come back over here. And it looks like this. It's a concealed seam allowance. And the smaller the seam allowance is, the smaller the French seam is, the prettier it looks. So I'm going to show you as well this way. I hope you could see that. And when it's all done, I'm going to show all 4 sides, because there's a short that goes with this. Okay, so this is a lesson on French seams at Soul Collections, www.soul-collections.com. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day. Bye.